Good morning, students. Myself Kamalnath. I welcome you all in the class of English, Gulmohar, Chapter 6, Feathered Friend. This is the second video, my dear. And in the first video, this week, I explained you the beginning part of the story of Feathered Friend by Sir Arthur Charles Clarke. The writer Arthur Charles Clarke is a science fiction writer. You know very well. I detailed you and gave you detailed information in the first video about his life, about his work. And in the beginning part of the story, we will go back so that this part will be connected with that and you will be able to make a complete shape of the story. The writer is writing this story describing his activities in the space station. He is with his co-worker and many other crew members working there, and he found one day a bird which is known as canary, common bird. Here it is called Clarivale. It is named as Clarivale, and it is yellow color, and it's no doubt very sensitive bird. In what way this bird is here helpful for the crew members there? This is what here the focusing part, the central part of the story, and that's why the title given is here Feathered Friend, a friend which having feather, and that was canary. So let us go and continue and see what happened when the writer saw the bird and when he was surprised to see it, as it was impossible to have a bird there in the space station. This bird was in fact brought by his co-worker Sven Olsen, and in the beginning he didn't confess it, but later on he admitted that the bird was brought by him. He wanted to know something else, bringing that bird. So let us see and continue the story. Here he is telling about the bird. She was a small yellow canary hanging in the air. When the writer saw the bird, he found about it that it was a small yellow canary bird hanging in the air, as motionless as a hummingbird. The bird was motionless, without any just activity. It was hanging. As you know that in a space station there is no gravity, and so even human beings and things are hanging when it is free. So the bird was hanging like a hummingbird, motionless, and with much less effort, for her wings were quietly folded along her sides. Her wings were folded along her sides. He had recognized that there was a bird when he heard a melodious sound, and that sound he thought in the beginning as intercom sound, and he waited for the message after that, the message that is followed after that intercom sound, but there was not any sound. So when he just observed in his surrounding, he found that bird there, and that only surprised him. So he is telling about the bird that she was a small yellow canary hanging in the air, as motionless as a hummingbird and with much less effort, for her wings were quietly folded along her sides. We stared at each other. Both of them, the writer and the bird, stared at each other, looked at each other for some time, for a minute. Before I had recovered my wits, she did a kind of backward loop. I am sure no earth-bound canary had ever managed And then what did he find that even surprised him more? He saw when he got consciousness in the beginning, when he saw the bird, no doubt he was quite nervous, he was confused. So he thought only how it was possible to have a bird there. But later, as he really assumed the activity of his friend, Svein Olsen, then he just really found that the bird really just turned backward. And he was sure. Then he thought that it was not possible by a bird, like a canary, which really could do at the earth. Then she departed with a few unhurried flicks, and then she flapped her wings. Little bit, she moved her wings. It was quite obvious that she had already learned how to operate in the absence of gravity. And the writer realized, he was no doubt, he could not stop to really appreciate the bird, as he now realized that the bird had learned, bird had adjusted itself in the absence of gravity, how it could manage, it could adjust itself in that atmosphere. Here, he obviously observed and did not believe in doing unnecessary work. And he is telling about bird only. The bird didn't really do any unnecessary work, as it is expected from the bird, unexpected from the bird that it can do anything. Here he saw that the bird didn't do anything like such. Svein didn't confess to her ownership for several days. When he asked his friend, his co-workers, Svein Olsen, he didn't confess that he had brought the bird. By that time, it no longer mattered because Claribel was a general pet. And the writer is telling that was not something very important or any kind of really risk, only because the bird was general pet only. That bird was a general pet, so there was not anything like such here specific that harm could be done. He had smuggled her up on the last ferry. He had brought it silently, hiding it. He had brought it without informing anybody in the last ferry from the earth, when he had gone to the earth and returned, when he came back from leave. Partially he claimed, little bit here, claimed he wanted to see just how a bird would operate when it had no weight. He later on told that he wanted to know, here bringing that bird, how the bird would operate when it had no weight, because the bird is light. Canary bird is a light bird, it has not much weight. So he wanted to know, he wanted to test it, how it operated when it had no weight but could still use its wings. He wanted to check that. Here, Claribel thrived and grew fat. Claribel, in fact, here grew and it developed and became a fat. On the whole, we had little trouble. The team had little trouble hiding our unauthorized guest. The writer is telling that they had not any special kind of trouble and much trouble to hide the bird, especially when VIPs from Earth came visiting. VIPs means other scientists and some other dignified people, authorized people came to visit the space station. There was not any trouble for them to hide the bird, although perhaps it was not really allowed to keep the pet there, keep the bird or animal there. So they just did not have much trouble to hide that unauthorized guest. What was that unauthorized guest? That was canary, Claribel, when VIPs came from the earth. A space station has more hiding places that you can count. As the writer is telling, there are so many space here to hide that bird. The only problem was that Claribel got rather noisy. Sometimes the bird became much noisy. It made much noise when she was upset. When the bird was upset and felt abnormal, she made noise. We sometimes had to think fast to explain the curious pips and whistles that came from ventilating shafts and storage spaces. Ventilating shafts is here what here? The passage that run through the space station that is used for air circulation. That is ventilating air shafts. So no doubt sometimes they had to think only and they had to explain curious peeps and that whistles that came, where that was coming from. So that was to explain to those people, okay, that it was coming from ventilating shafts and from a storage spaces to those people when being asked that question. There were a couple of narrow escapes, but then who would dream of looking for a canary in a space station? No doubt nobody really had like this kind of imagination that there may be a canary bird brought by somebody in the space station. Nobody bothered really to make much queries and to become curious about that sound that was coming. We were now on 12-hour watches, which was not as bad as it sounds, since you need little sleep in space. They had little time only to sleep there, though of course there is no day and night. When you are floating in permanent sunlight, you cannot really have day or night, just light and light. It was still convenient to stick to the terms. Certainly, when I woke up that morning, in fact, what morning after when he woke up, that was morning. Morning was not that when there was sunrise only, that was morning. So he mean to say here morning is especially quoted for that. When he woke up, that was morning, not according to the just sunlight or timing. And it felt 6 a.m. on earth, and that was the time 6 a.m. on the earth. I had a nagging headache. The writer is telling that he had continuous ear pain, continuous headache, and vague memories of fitful disturbed dreams. He had even that he had continuous pain that he had here, and he remembered that. He remembered that he had that pain, continuous pain. I was still only half awake when I joined the remainder of the duty crew in the mess. He was still not in just a full consciousness, full alert. He was still half awake, as he is telling. And then he joined the remainder, rest of the crew members, those who were there only for the just duty. Breakfast was unusually quiet, and there was one seat vacant. That seat was of Sen Olsen, that was vacant. So when he saw that vacant seat, he asked his co-workers, other members, where he had gone, where was Sen Olsen. So we will see that next part of the story in the next video. What happened to the bird in fact here, and in what way that bird became the part of their activity, their routine there. And it really was very sensible to keep that bird for them there. That is interesting one. I will explain you in the next part of the video, third part. Till then, I suggest you to go through each and every line of the chapter minutely, very carefully. Learn all the new words and hard words that is explained on all the pages. Till then, just be safe, stay safe and be careful. Thank you, student. Thank you very much.